Hey everybody, we are back. We've got Mason Greenblatt and I am Robert Greenblatt. And today, imagine this. Imagine if you got a phone call from a real estate agent involved in a transaction of your piece of property, and you said to that agent, I don't know what you're talking about. My property isn't for sale. So we have a couple of stories for you today. It is clear, super clear, that fraud mostly appears to be coming from overseas somewhere, but fraud in real estate transaction is running rampant. We had a few situations that we're going to share with you real quick today. Mason has firsthand experiences, so listen closely to this. Mason, why don't we start with a transaction that actually closed, and then we found out afterwards that the whole transaction was fraudulent.
So to get this done within a minute version. So we got a phone call for somebody looking to sell their land in New Jersey. We did all of our due diligence. We even spoke to them on the phone, obviously. We had IDs and all of that. We listed it for sale. We got a buyer. The buyer purchased the land. The seller did everything that was asked of them with all the paperwork, all the title docs, and we even closed.
Right. And important to point out, not only did we have bona fide identification from the seller and have multiple phone conversations with the seller also had documents notarized, or would appear to be notarized, by a United States notary, which is not uncommon. We deal with clients all over the world on a regular basis. And in this situation as well, the buyer had an attorney involved. So the buyer had attorney representation throughout this process. So the attorney was reviewing documents as well. But anyway, so we closed, right, Mason? And then what happened?
So we closed. Nothing changed other than I would say probably about 60 days later, we were on the call with our title company, and they were explaining another recent transaction that sounded very similar, that lined up to ours. The wording of the email, the original email from the seller, and push came to shove, it ended up being fraud. The seller that we thought was the seller wasn't the actual seller.
Yep. So we were talking with one of our title partners, like you said, and she was sharing with us a recent situation that they had in another state with the sale of a piece of land, which turned out to be fraudulent. And our light bulbs kind of went off. And we said, can you take a close look? I don't know why we said that actually, but
because the email, the original email we got from the seller sounded a little goofy about his wife being a little sick. And when we spoke to the title company, they said another transaction had that same email.
Yeah, so right, that's right. So like the ingredients of that recipe sounded pretty similar. So we asked our title partner, hey, we closed this one not that long ago. Can you pull the file and look it over? And then within a day, she got back to us and said, it's absolutely fraud. And I'm not laughing. It's not funny. It's terrible. It was absolute fraud. And apparently what they're finding as well is the notary stamp information and the notary's name. They seem to use one of several people, and it was the same person in both of those transactions. As crazy as that was, because obviously they had nothing to do with this other one, right? So they sniffed it out. Fortunately, most of the buyer's costs have been covered through title insurance. Title insurance is super important, guys. But the point is, fraud is everywhere. We always have to keep our eyes open, right? This slipped through us, right? Let's be honest, right, Mason? It slipped through us.
100%.
I mean, but we asked for identification. Everything just seemed on the up and up. It got through the title company, through the entire closing process. It got through the buyer's attorney, and it's absolutely insane. Obviously, this was a phone call the buyer did not want to receive, but at least we were able to flush it out. Then we had another one recently. Fortunately, we were able to nip this one in the bud. Right? You had a couple of pieces of land recently listed for sale, right?
Yep.
Land doesn't necessarily sell super quick, right? But if you think about the nature of this type of fraud, it'd be tricky or much more difficult to do this with a physical house, right?
Yeah.
Because no one's living on vacant land, at least hopefully not. So what happened with that one? We listed it for sale, 2 pieces of land.
Listed it for sale. Received an offer 2-3 weeks ago. Seller went mute, wasn't answering texts, wasn't answering phone calls, all that. Did a little bit of background research, did a little bit of work to find out that he wasn't the actual seller either. Called the original seller, and the seller's response was, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Yeah. We had finally gotten an offer on this unique piece of land, and interestingly, when we think back of the conversations with the seller initially when it was listed, when we were doing our due diligence, we did notice that this particular seller also owned a few other contiguous parcels of land to the 2 that he wanted to sell. He said at the time, "I'm not interested in selling these other ones. I really would like to just sell these 2 that we talked about." No big deal. We've seen that kind of stuff before. And that's what we did. And it's just crazy, man. There's just so much fraud out there. Then we had another situation, kind of like this got sniffed out super early, where we received leads from our typical lead sources, just like these leads came in. However, if I remember this correctly, you stop me, Mason, if I'm making a mistake, but I believe that a couple of leads within a period of a few weeks, the voicemails went right to the phone numbers were different, but the voicemails went to the same place. Something like that.
Two different leads came in, 2 different addresses, but they both led to the same voicemail.
Wow.
So, and the only way I was able to put that together, because it was only within a week of each other, so it's pretty easy to catch that one.
Right. So obviously, we're not the only ones that are seeing this kind of stuff. If you're a real estate agent and you guys are watching this, you're probably seeing stuff like this too. Fraud is just rampant out there. So if you're a seller, if you own a piece of, or a property owner, and you have a piece of property and something feels weird, or you want us to check the multiple listing service for you and make sure nothing funky is going on there, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help you. I mean, there is fraud with cashier's checks. There is fraud with email addresses and bank wires. And then the bad guys just keep getting badder. So this reminds me of a quick anecdote, and then we'll break. But many years ago, before this stuff was on the rise, I got a phone call from someone, an out-of-state seller, and she had a property here locally that she wanted me to sell. And I said, sure, I could help you with that. She said it had been rented previously. The tenant was gone, but she did not have keys. So I remember vividly saying to her on the phone, I could help you with that. I can get a contractor to basically break into the house and change the locks. The name she gave me matched the name on the public record, so far so good. But I said, can you please email or text me a copy of your identification? And this was before any of this happened, or any of this crazy stuff was going on. And she got a little standoffish. And she said, hey, why do you need that? I said, well, you're asking me to break into your house, basically, or help you have someone break into your house. I kind of have to know who I'm talking to, you know? It's more just a phone call. I don't even know if you know the story. So she did text me or email me a copy of her driver's license. And as it turned out, the only reason she was hesitant was because she was somewhat of a local celebrity here in our area, a former news anchor that was very well known, and she just didn't want anyone to know her business. So I certainly had a lot of respect for that. And ultimately, we did what we had to do and took good care of her. But that was just regular due diligence. Well, apparently now, based on these stories, regular due diligence just isn't enough. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today. We will be back real soon with another good story for you. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.